After everything was done, someone lit a candle and set fire to the final paper effigy. The flames burst forth violently, engulfing the figure. The fire traveled along the outstretched arms, spreading to the paper figure in front of it. Under the cover of night, the three hook-nosed men hurriedly left. Their return was noticeably much faster than when they had arrived. One of the servants at the back, unable to see clearly in the dark, even stumbled and fell. Watching the paper effigies being burned by the lake, Din Din spoke in fear. "Those paper figures, they're terrifying. I've never seen anything like them before." Hua Tusi looked out the window, worry in her eyes. There were 7 paper figures in total, exactly the same number as us. Din Din's face turned pale. After spending some time together, she had grown familiar with the group. "Sister Hua, don't scare me like that. I'm sure those paper figures were meant to be burned for the Fong family's second young master. Didn't that old lady say he just passed away? Look, there's still a white lantern hanging at the main gate." "They're not for the second young master," said Kwang Hong Nia calmly, lowering his voice. 7 figures, 1 male, 6 female, that's an old custom passed down. But this time they were all male. That means they were burned as attendants for a woman." "You're right," said Duong Tu, gazing through the crack in the door. The dancing flames were reflected in his eyes, giving the illusion that the paper figures were slowly being swallowed by the dark lake. And it was a young woman who had never given birth. Hearing this, the other 3 immediately turned to look at him. Kwang Hong Nia frowned and asked, as if seeking confirmation, "How do you know it was a young woman who'd never had children?" Duong Tu, not hiding anything, perhaps hoping to raise his standing in the group, lifted his head and explained, "Look closely. The left eyebrow on all those paper figures is longer than the right, and they're all dressed in red. This type of figure is known in the trade as a bridegroom paper effigy, ko jia. Normally, they're only used in wedding rituals. If a young, unmarried woman dies before giving birth, the family will burn bridegroom paper figures for her to ease her loneliness and her yearning." Din Din blinked in surprise. "Yearning? You mean, like, heartbreak?" Duong Tu smiled helplessly. "More like longing of a man-woman nature. The ancients believed that men with long, thick left eyebrows symbolized youth and virility." Everyone seemed to understand now except Din Din, who still looked puzzled. She blinked and whispered, "But burning 7 of them, can she even handle that?" No one answered. Kwang Hong Nia's gaze toward Duong Tu changed subtly, and his tone became more respectful. "Little brother," earlier the lead man pressed a yellow talisman to the paper figure's forehead. "What was that about?" "That part, I'm not sure," Duong Tu admitted honestly. "Knowing this much is already pushing it. I've just read a lot of old ghost stories and watched a bunch of creepy plays." Kwang Hong Nia stood up, shifted around to get a better view outside the window, and finally made a decision. "You all guard the door for me. I'm going out to take a look." Din Din shrank back in fear. The paper figures were still burning outside, and the ominous atmosphere made her uneasy. Just looking at those bridegroom figures made her skin crawl. Hua Tusi, being the more experienced one, nodded. "It's not midnight yet, and it's only the first day. Should be fine. Just be careful." Seeing Kwang Hong Nia glance her way, Hua Tusi said firmly, "Don't worry. The 3 of us will stay right here. We won't leave you alone." Kwang Hong Nia cracked the door open just enough to slip out, hunched down, and moved quickly toward the lake. Hua Tusi immediately shut the door behind him. At the same time, in another nearby room, the candle had also been extinguished. The people inside were quietly observing the same scene. "Someone's coming out," Kalong whispered through the door crack. "Looks like Kwang Hong Nia." The room was smaller, and the best viewing spot had already been taken by Kalong and Su Dai Luk. Ti Quan Min timidly stood behind them by the window. "Should we go out and check too?" Kalong gave him a side glance. "Sure, then you go." Ti Quan Min flinched and fell silent. He'd seen everything clearly, the way those people acted sneaky and unnatural. Clearly something was off. Su Dai Luk said, "Let's stay quiet for now. Wait until morning. Then we can ask Kwang Hong Nia." "If he's still alive," Kalong said coldly. "Besides, are you sure he'll tell us the truth?" Su Dai Luk looked at him. "Danger always comes with opportunity. Of course everyone wants to see for themselves. But are you brave enough to risk it?" Kalong stayed silent. The two continued to watch. Even if Kwang Hong Nia died, for them, it would still be a valuable lesson. If used wisely, it could help them avoid danger in the future. Kwang Hong Nia was extremely cautious. First, he made sure the servants were long gone and there was no one hiding nearby. Then, and only then, did he approach the paper figures. By now, only 2 paper figures remained unburned. The second-to-last one was currently ablaze. Kwang Hong Nia crept closer and stopped in front of the lead figure. In the firelight, he froze for a few seconds. Then, as the final figure caught fire, he turned back without hesitation. Hua Tuc quickly opened the door and pulled him back inside. "It's fine. Light the candle," Kwang Hong Nia said, shivering as he wrapped his coat tighter around himself. The air by the lake was strangely cold, a chill that seeped into his bones. As the candlelight flickered to life again, everyone finally let out a breath of relief. In that moment, the dim light brought a rare feeling of safety. To Din Din, being thoughtful, stood up and poured a cup of hot tea for Kwang Hong Nia. "Brother Kwang, drink this. It'll warm you up." Kwang Hong Nia didn't respond at first. He took the tea, then turned to Duong Tu. After composing himself, his voice softened. "Little brother, you were right. Those really were bridegroom effigies." The left eyebrow was clearly longer than the right. And the lead figure, its face had a yellow talisman stuck to it, with someone's birth date written on it. I believe this wasn't something the Fong family did to ward off misfortune, but rather a ritual to honor someone else. Those bridegroom effigies were sacrifices, meant for that girl. They even burned paper money to drive away in spirits. The Fong family's second young master has only just died. They haven't even held a proper ceremony for him. Yet they secretly send people to burn offerings for a young girl by the lake. Tell me, isn't that bizarre? No one said a word. A heavy silence fell over the room. Everything was starting to make sense. The girl being worshipped tonight by the Fong family might be directly connected to that massacre. And right then, in Duong Tu's mind, appeared the image of a woman standing on a sofa. Gradually, a faint plop-plop sound echoed outside. An unexpected night rain had begun to fall without warning. At some point, a thin layer of mist had settled over the lake. It came so suddenly that by the time Duong Tu's group noticed, nearly the entire lake was already shrouded in fog. In the darkness, the mist took on an eerie leaden gray hue, as if it were alive, slowly enveloping the house they were staying in. Within moments, everything around them seemed to dissolve into a hazy, gray world. Looking through a crack in the window, they could see that the house across from them had also vanished into the mist. Even the candlelight was no longer visible, as if that place had been erased from existence. They couldn't see a thing. Hua Tuc tilted his head, his pale face showing visible discomfort. "Check the windows. Don't let the mist seep inside," Kwang Hong Nia ordered, eyes locked tensely on the scene outside. Mist like this was too strange. Who could be sure it wasn't dangerous? Outside, the fog thickened, rain pattered heavily, and the candle flames inside flickered. The group sat in silence. At that moment, only the faint glow of the candles brought any sense of security. Din Din sat close to one of them, as if trying to cradle its fragile light. After some time, she frowned slightly. She had begun to hear something strange, a distant, indistinct sound, sometimes near, sometimes far, as if it were coming from the middle of the lake. Slowly, the sound grew clearer, and Din Din began to tremble. Her face turned deathly pale. She could hear it now. It was the sound of opera singing. A haunting, sorrowful voice echoing from the lake, the melody heavy, eerie, and chilling to the bone. Duong Tu, who had watched many horror films, felt a shiver of recognition. He suddenly recalled a movie he'd seen as a child, Corpse of the Mountain Village. In it, the ghostly woman named So Nan Mai had a similarly haunting voice. Wearing a blue gown, drifting across a misty lake, she had become a childhood nightmare for many. As adults, they thought they had outgrown it, only to find that the memory had become a lingering shadow of adulthood. Din Din curled into a ball, hands pressed tightly to her ears, but it was useless. The singing seemed to pierce through her ears and go straight into her mind. She lowered her head, trembling violently, whispering prayers. She was just a normal student, had done nothing wrong. Her life hadn't even truly begun. She didn't want to die here, but as if some cruel entity wanted to mock her, the singing grew louder, now accompanied by a strange rustling sound. Sounded like paddling? That was Duong Tu's first reaction. But the clearer it became, the more certain he was. It was indeed the sound of oars churning water. The boat was moving, and from the sound of it, it wasn't small. A fuzzy image formed in his mind. A large boat drifting across the lake, someone on it, singing opera while strangling someone. But just at dusk, he had clearly seen the lake's surface. It was empty, not even a floating raft. Where had this boat come from now? As he was pondering, someone touched his back. He turned around. It was Kwang Hong Nia. In the flickering candlelight, cold sweat drenched his forehead. He pointed toward the rear window and drew a curved line in the air. Duong Chu understood. That curve was the path the boat was taking as it circled around the house, from the front to the back. But the terrifying thing was, there was no lake behind the house, only dense forest, without water. How was the boat moving? And the singing grew closer. It was clearly a woman's voice, its tone sorrowful and unnerving. Along with the water sounds came the noise of something brushing against surfaces. The boat was nearing. It's the candles. Put them out. Kwang Hong Nia hissed and blew out the one beside him. Hua Tuc quickly extinguished the one on the table. Duong Chu crouched low, crawling toward to Din Din, who still had her back to him. In front of her was the only candle still burning. Put out the candle, he whispered, but Din Din didn't react. She just sat there trembling slightly, hands wrapped around her chest, not moving, growing anxious. Duong Chu moved to her front to blow it out himself, but what he saw froze him in place. In the dim candlelight, Din Din was hunched over, biting the white candle. Her mouth and fingers were smeared with wax crumbs. Even more horrifying, her eyes were rolled completely white, pupils gone. Kwang Hong Nia panicked, abandoning all caution. He grabbed her and shouted, "She's possessed!" Hua Tuc also realized something. The entity hadn't attacked anyone else because it had already found a target. Kwang Hong Nia raised his hand to slap her awake, but Hua Tuc stopped him. "No, it's too loud." "Then how the hell do we wake her?" he shouted in a whisper. Outside, the singing grew more deranged, part sobbing, part laughing. Duong Chu acted quickly. He snapped the candle from its holder, clamped one hand over her mouth, and with the other, jabbed the sharp candle base into her butt. Ah! The sudden jolt of pain made Din Din arch her back like a shrimp. Her eyes flickered. She was awake. Just to be sure, Duong Chu stabbed her a few more times. Only when he saw tears welling in her eyes did he let go of the candle. Something strange happened. The moment she came to, the singing outside vanished. No more paddling. No more scraping sounds. Just silence. No one dared to speak. Duong Chu kept his hand over her mouth. Everyone held their breath, waiting, though for what, they didn't know. The room was pitch dark, filled only with their ragged breathing. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning split the sky, followed by a deafening crack of thunder. In that instant, everyone froze. In the flash of lightning, they saw it. Outside the rear window, pressed right up against the glass, was a towering figure. Grotesquely large, with a head twice the size of a normal person. It loomed there, silently watching them.